giving me an option for. Well, it usually gives me an option for live broadcast or live feed or something, and it's not there now. It lets me go to the camera, but to do a video, but it doesn't say if it's not live feed. Unless they've changed again. Yeah, because you're gonna put it on back there? Okay. Something's changed because it's not there now. All right. Ready? All right, we're still having some technical difficulties, so I don't know. We're going to try a different way tonight to see if it works. If not, maybe we'll at least have it recorded and you can watch it later. We're going to finish up our study in the minor prophets of the Old Testament tonight. We're in Malachi chapter 3. We'll go through chapter 3 and chapter 4 tonight and finish this study up. It's been a good study. A lot of things I think have been brought out that maybe we haven't seen before. Not that they weren't already there, it's just maybe we haven't seen them before, or at least understood what their meaning was. Or anyway, chapter 3 is more or less just at least the first part is just a continuation of chapter 2. If you remember in chapter 2, God was talking back and forth to Israel. You saw where he would ask them a question, they would answer, or they would ask a question, he would answer, back and forth. And it was more or less him telling them why things were the way they were for them. Let's start with the last verse of chapter 2, verse 17, and then we'll get into chapter 3. Ye have worried the Lord with your words, yet ye say, wherein have we worried him? When ye say, every one that doeth evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delighteth in them, or where is the God of judgment? And when you talked about that last time, they were calling good evil and evil good. Same thing we see today. And they were asking, where is the God of judgment? Where's the Messiah? Was their question. And today the Jews are asking the same question. Where's the Messiah? They've been asking that for generations now. And he came and they didn't accept him. They didn't recognize him, didn't think he was the real one, and so they're still looking. He'll be coming again, and when he does, they'll know him that time. Or at least a remnant of them will. There are going to be there's going to be a remnant out of the nation of Israel that will be saved, and in that day, and they will be the ones who will carry over into the millennium, as far as the nation of Israel is concerned. Now, chapter 3, verse 1 says, "Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me." Now, who is he talking about here? It could be only one that I can think of, and that would be John the Baptist. He says, "I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me." This is the Lord speaking here. The Lord Jesus Christ himself, the Son of God, is speaking here. His way was prepared by John the Baptist. He was a messenger sent by God. "And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple." Now, he's talking about the Messiah here. He's talking to Israel, remember. The Lord whom ye seek, the one that we just talked about at the end of verse 17 of chapter 2. The God of judgment. He's going to come. He says, shall suddenly come to his temple. And certainly, Jesus made several trips to the temple in his life, didn't he, on this earth? "Even the messenger of the covenant, whom he delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts." So first, you're going to see his messenger, John the Baptist. There's a key prophecy right there that they should recognize. There's a messenger coming from God. He's going to be preparing the way for the Son of God, for the Messiah. John the Baptist is the only one who has fit that bill. Nobody else. And even he proclaimed that he was making a way. He was preparing the way for the Messiah, the Son of God. And when Jesus came on the scene and they met up the first time as adults, John recognized him as such and proclaimed that he was the one that he'd been preaching of. There was no doubt. And yet, the people of Israel still rejected him. You know, it's always amazed me how you read the stories there in the four Gospels about things that were going on with John the Baptist when he was preaching. What better witness was there that Christ was the Messiah but a prophet? He was obviously a man sent from God. He was a godly prophet, and it appears as though a lot of the Jews admitted that. They knew his father had been a priest in the temple. They knew he was somebody special. They knew about his miraculous birth. He didn't have as miraculous a birth as Jesus did, but his parents were old, like Abraham and Sarah, and it was a miraculous birth. There was the Bible doesn't tell us, but there was a lot of witnesses to that. The fact that his father lost his voice, God took his voice from him till the day he was born. And they saw that. They were witnesses for that. Yet they still rejected the Messiah. Verse 2, "But who may abide the day of his coming?" In other words, who's going to understand it? They didn't understand it, did it, when he came? "And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire and like fuller's soap." He's coming to cleanse, in other words. To cleanse who? Or what? His people. "And he shall sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness." Now, what's he mean here by the purify the sons of Levi? Well, if you remember in the Gospels, it appears that some of the priests at the temple were saved, doesn't it? It mentions that. Matter of fact, it sounds like quite a few of them believed on Christ in that day. Talks about purifying as silver and gold, and if I'm sure we've all heard that preached, and all may have even studied it from time to time, how that you put a fire under gold and silver, and eventually, if there are any impurities in it, they float to the top, and you scrape those off, and you keep heating it until all the what's called dross is cooked off of it. And there's several places in the Scripture where the Lord uses that analogy to explain how He does with His people. He purifies how He purifies us. He puts us through the fire. Verse 4, Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old, and as in former years. When has this happened? Has it happened yet? No, it has not. This comes in the future. When is the offering of Judah and Jerusalem? When will it be pleasant unto the Lord again? Well, I don't believe it's going to be until the millennium, to be honest, because you're not going to see it. And people talk about building a third temple. And I know the Bible does talk about that. But at the time that it's built, the people of Israel are not saved yet, are they? They're worshiping a false god in that temple, at least in the beginning. Their offerings are going to be as pleasant to the Lord as they were in the days of old, he says, back when they had the tabernacle and in the first years of the temple, the first temple. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord of hosts. So he's going to get rid of all those false prophets, false teachers, false preachers, false believers, all those who have denied the Lord. He's going to remove them. For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. What does he mean there? God had a promise to the sons of Jacob, didn't he? To the sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He made a promise that he would not destroy them. There were going to be times where they were going to go off into captivity. There were going to be hard times. There were going to be trials they were going to have to go through. There were going to be persecutions. There was going to be chastisements from God. But in the end, the sons of Jacob are not going to be consumed. They're going to come out of it, come through all that, and God's going to call them his people. Verse 7, Even from the days of your fathers you are gone away from mine ordinances, and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye said, Wherein shall we return? In other words, the people, they don't know that they've left. They've left the Lord. He didn't leave them, they left him. But they think they're still with him. Isn't that how it is oftentimes with God's people? Is when we get out of, we get away from the Lord, we get out living and doing things that we shouldn't, but yet we think we're still in the right. Well, I still go to church. I still pray every day. I still read my Bible every day. But what about in between times? What are you doing? Are you thinking on the Lord? Are you doing things that are pleasant to the Lord? Verse 8, will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Now this is a popular verse with anyone who preaches and believes in tithes and offerings, even in the Lord's churches today. The people, and we've read this, some in the minor prophets where we've been reading, some of it's in other books in the Old Testament. You see it where the people got away from bringing the correct tithe and offerings to the temple. They were getting sloppy with their worship. They weren't following the Lord and what they were supposed to be doing. And it was simple. You know, you bring a tenth of everything you earn, and an offering is something over that, whatever you feel led to give over that. It was real simple to follow, but they had gotten to the point. Remember, I think it was last time where they talked about where they were not bringing the correct animals to the temple for offerings, for the to sacrifice on the altars. They were bringing impure animals that weren't worthy. And what were they doing? They were robbing God. Some today try to teach that tithe and offerings are not for the Lord's church, but I know this verse is directed at Israel, but also Christ never said don't pay tithe and offering, did he? Matter of fact, he encouraged it in his day. Some say, well, we don't matter if we do it or not. It's the thought that counts. You hear that sometimes. Well, but how do you expect a church to survive without tithe and offerings? I've always wondered at people that don't believe in tithe and offerings. How do you expect you want to be a part of a church? You want to come every service, but we got electric bill to pay. Wintertime we got a gas bill to pay. We got water bill. We don't have a mortgage, but some churches do. There's other things. We support missionaries. You support your pastor. There are other things that the church needs money to do to survive. And there are those who just don't care. They think, well, we need to rely on the Lord. Well, the Lord told you to do it. You know, to rely on the Lord is for you to do what you've been commanded to do. So, now verse 9, he says, ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. So it wasn't just a few people, it was the whole nation who had robbed God. And remember, like I said, they had gotten to where they weren't offering the correct animals. They were offering those that were impure. They were saving the best for themselves. Do we do that today? Do we save the best for ourselves instead of bringing it to the house of the Lord? Well, some people do, don't they? I'm glad we don't have that issue here as far as people not paying their tithes. I mean, that's been a non-issue here since I've been here, I think. But there's other places I've been where there was people that were very wealthy that had it in their mind that, well, I don't have to pay tithe. You know, it's not in the New Testament. It's as an Old Testament law. That's what they would say. Yet they want to reap the benefits of the Lord's church. If you want to get down to it, Jesus told us to give our all, didn't he? So, do we would you rather give a tenth, or would you rather give all of it? Verse 10, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. Improve me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. What he's teaching here is that if you do what's correct, you do what I've told you, as far as your tithe and offerings, you'll be blessed for it. What we often forget about it is at the temple, and I guess it was that way at the tabernacle too, but at the temple in particular, because that's where that would be in the timeline that we're in, was the second temple. The tithe and offerings were what fed the priest. The priests were required to work. If I remember right, they were to work a certain, like a shift. They had to work so many months out of the year, and then they would switch out with others. And so they couldn't, most of them had families. They couldn't support themselves while they were working at the temple. They had to have a way to feed their families. They would get the meat. They were commanded to eat the meat off the altars in certain circumstances, in certain feasts. They were to the grain and whatever fruits and vegetables they harvested, they were to get part of that. What they didn't use for themselves, they were to give to the poor. They would give to the needy and the poor and the widows and orphans. People forget about those things, don't they? If you don't have a tithe and offering coming in, you can't do those things. I think about how the Lord has blessed us here with what we've been able to do. For a very small church, we've been able to do some things for the Lord that churches 3 and 4 times our size can't even think about doing. And then the Lord's blessed us all for it. Verse 11, and I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts. Has this ever happened in Israel's history yet? We'll say up to today. Certainly not. Even since the nation that's there now in Israel has come about, the majority of the world hates them. They might help them every once in a while because they hate the Muslims too, but for the most part they hate the Jews. He says here, all nations shall call you blessed. So when does this happen? It doesn't happen in the tribulation, does it? Because they come under a lot of persecution during the tribulation. It's going to happen during the millennium. Your words have been stout against me, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, what have we spoken so much against thee? Ye have said, it is vain to serve God. And what profit is it that we have kept his ordinance, and that we have walked mournfully before the Lord of hosts? So they've spoken strong words against the Lord, and he's telling them this, and they ask, what have we spoken so much against thee? They don't have a clue that what they've been doing is against the Lord. And you look even into the New Testament, and you see the people in Israel, the Jews in Israel, were very much against the things of God. They had distorted the law. They had brought in things into the temple, like Jesus threw out the money changers, remember? That was a common thing. They had people there selling their wares in the temple. Well, there was a market in Jerusalem, well, several markets actually in Jerusalem, where they could do those things. That wasn't, the temple was not the place to do that. And that's why most churches I know of that believe like we do anyway, that they don't sell things inside the building. A pastor may write a book. We know we've got some good friends pastors that have written books and they sell their books. They got to have money to cover the printing of them and to make a little bit of a living off of them. There's nothing wrong with that. But we don't set up a table by the back door and beg for money for them. There's other ways of helping in that matter, but they were selling things in the temple, and Jesus told them that's not supposed to be going on here. This is a house of worship. They said, what profit is it that we have kept his ordinance and that we have walked mournfully before the Lord of hosts? How many times do we hear people say, well, it's not important to go to church. I got my name on the roll. I'll show up every once in a while and that'll be enough. It's kind of the same thing they're saying here. It is vain to serve God. You see that? It is vain to serve God. That's what they say. We don't have to. We don't have to do that. People today, and even in a lot of the Lord's churches, don't understand the seriousness of being a church member. They don't understand the authority of the church. I think is where it begins. They don't understand the church's authority in matters. They don't understand that as far as being a church member, you're part of a family. And people think, well, my kids have got ball games, we're going to go play ball on Wednesday night. Or, don't have the revival in the summertime because our kids have got sports. I know places, I know pastors that won't go preach anywhere certain months because they got ball games. They're coaching or they're umpiring or refereeing or something. That tells me that you're not taking the things of the Lord very serious. Verse 15, and now we call the proud happy. Yea, they that worked wickedness are set up. Yea, they that tempt God are even delivered. So, he says that we call the proud happy. No, they're proud. Proud people are considered good today, aren't they? People who are filled full of pride. Yea, they that work wickedness are set up. Those who do wickedness are put up in high places, aren't they? They're given the good jobs, or they're given the high positions in the government, and they're just as wicked as can be. Verse 16, then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. A book of remembrance was written that those that believed on the Lord. So that he says, because a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord and that thought upon his name. Those that kept the Lord in their thoughts and their prayers, that were constantly walking with the Lord, he remembers them. He has a book with their names written down. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serve God and him that serveth him not. There's a judgment day coming, and God's going to sift the wheat from the tares, isn't he? The sheep from the goats. Chapter 4, and this will be the end of our study. Verse 1, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. There's going to be a day coming. He says it shall burn as an oven. Well, we know for one, the next time the earth is destroyed and renovated, it's not going to be with water, it's going to be by fire. God tells us that. But there's also, remember, there's that lake of fire. After the judgment, there are going to be those who are not God's elect are going to be thrown into the lake of fire because they rejected him. And there's not going to be, he says, there's neither root nor branch. There's not going to be any continuation. There's not going to be any new growth. They're gone for good. They're going to be forgotten. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. You're going to prosper. When is this? Well, according to the first verse, it appears as though this is going to be in eternity. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet, in the day that I shall do this, saith the Lord of hosts. At the time of the judgment, the wicked are going to see what all they're guilty of. Part of that's going to be how they treated Israel. Verse 4, remember ye the law of Moses my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Remember my law. Not, we think today, well, we're not under the law. Well, we need to remember God's word. Not just the law, but all of it. All they had was the law. That's all they knew about. We have a complete Bible, the complete Word of God, full of his statutes and judgments from beginning to end. Verse 5, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Now what is he talking about here? And I've heard this different ways. Some say he's talking about John the Baptist here. No. He says Elijah. Not one like Elijah. You know, John the Baptist was compared to Elijah. It was said that he was one like Elijah, but he was not Elijah. The Jews in his day, some of them thought he might be Elijah. They thought Christ might be Elijah when he came and was performing miracles. But that's not who he's talking about here. Who's he talking about? He's talking about Elijah. When does Elijah come? Remember the two witnesses? Does that not happen before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord? Now, is Elijah, he's not the only one that comes, but he is one of them. That's pretty clear. There's only two men in all of the Bible who never died. And that was Elijah and Enoch. They were both prophets. They were both preaching judgment in their days. They lived at different times, drastically different times actually. Enoch was before the flood. But they were both preaching judgment and preaching Christ in their day. And the Lord took them. They didn't die, in other words. But there's going to come a day when they are going to die. They're going to come back. And there are going to be those two witnesses that are going to preach the gospel to the whole world. The whole world's going to see it. They're going to be the ones who the nation of Israel hears preach the gospel. And they're going to hear them this time. They're not going to deny him like before. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. You notice this prophet Elijah is going to turn the hearts of the children, the fathers and the children. Remember, we're told one of the prophecies we're told of the days, the end times, is that the fathers and mothers are going to turn, or the children are going to turn against their fathers and mothers, and vice versa, and families are going to be in upheaval, and we're seeing a lot of that today. That day is coming soon, appears. It's going to be even worse in that day and time. But this prophet, these two prophets, if you will, when they come and preach, those who are going to believe at that time, that problem's going to be fixed. Those families are going to come back together. He says, "Lest I smite the whole earth with a curse." Well, there's going to be a curse on the whole earth at that time, except for on the people of Israel and God's elect. Now, that's the end of our study on the minor prophets. I know there's probably a lot of things we missed, a lot of things that we could have discussed that we didn't. Maybe we'll do that again another time. I don't know. It took a long time to go through this study. There was a lot more there than there appears to be on the surface. But it's been a good study. I encourage you, if you're watching, go back. If you haven't seen all the videos, go back and watch them. They're on our sermonaudio.com page. You can go there and look at our church's page, and you can find the link to series. Click on there and look up the series for the minor prophets, and they're all there. Next time, we'll see where the Lord takes us. I got something in mind. I think maybe just a one sermon study, but we'll see how it goes for starting next week, and then we'll see where the Lord has us go after that.